Hey, if you want to see if you're making any progress, this is where I left you hanging on the edge of the cliff, desperately trying to avoid falling into the abyss. Right? So we've got the integral that we're trying to solve, and I led you down the path to the point where I said, hey, here is your substitution for x. Well, what should have happened next? Let's go a little further down the path. Right, I'm just looking at this part inside the integral. I'm just looking at the square root of x squared minus 4. And I will plug in 2 secant of theta, because that's what I said you should use to substitute for x. Of course, 2 secant theta times 2 secant theta will become 4 secant squared theta. There is a common factor of 4. So let's factor out the 4. And now we have secant squared theta minus 1. Okay, now maybe you've got this memorized. Maybe you can look at your reference sheet. Or maybe you're stuck on a desert island and you don't have this memorized and you don't have your reference sheet. So you grab a stick and you start drawing the sand. And of course, you're going to draw the most basic. Sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta equals 1. Anything we need, this is where we can start. I need secant squared theta. Well, let's divide everything by cosine squared theta. Sine squared theta divided by cosine squared theta is tangent squared theta. Of course, that next fraction will just become 1. And then the reciprocal of cosine is secant, so 1 over cosine squared theta is secant squared theta. That's not quite what's inside there, is it? What if I subtract 1 from each side of the equation? There's my perfect match. Secant squared theta minus 1, that's the same thing as tangent squared theta. So I can make that substitution. Square root of 4, of course, is just plain old 2. Square root of tangent squared theta is just tangent of theta. Now, that only takes care of part of what's inside the integral. All right? So if you've gotten this far along on your own, that's fantastic. If you've gotten further than this, fantastic. But I might find myself posting a little bit more in the future here. Bum, ba, bum.